Hey guys, what's going on? Today we got a deck profile. The deck I ended up taking to the Columbus Regionals yesterday. I ended up getting top 32, 26th place overall with pure Despia. I believe that this is probably the better variant of the deck, just because it can play through hand traps easier and it doesn't have to play as many like brick cards, being like Dracoback and um, just the whole adventure engine for the most part. I didn't want to conflict with Aliber ever, and I just wanted to resolve him as much as possible. Um, I don't remember my matchups exactly, but every game I got to play except for one in particular, and the only reasons I lost were not because I didn't get to play, but because I just made misplays that I could caught after the fact. And obviously, the bigger event, you're not going to be able to do like take backs and things like that. But that's irrelevant. I have a couple shoutouts I'd like to give before the start of the video, or before the start of the profile, I should say. The first being to Derek and Corbin for driving and getting at the hotel. Made everything a lot smoother. Shout outs to Ethan and DJ for loaning me the cards I needed, specifically Aliber's and the Edge Imp package, since I didn't own it at the time. And shout out to everybody else who helped me playtest online. And another shout out to my friend Alan. Forgot. He ended up sending me the Edge Imp cards in the mail as well, and I think they get here in time. So I ended up having like 2 sets of the Edge Imp stuff. But regardless, it was very appreciated from everybody who helped me be able to play this and get a top. And one of the first regionals back since the COVID era. So yeah, we're going to go on and get into it. To start, we're on to Albaz. This is pretty standard nowadays. In the grind games, this came up a lot. The fact that I could just, draw this and out certain boards. It was very nice. The advantage to playing pure is we get to play 3 Aliber. This card is fantastic, obviously. It's very good, and I'm glad I get to play 3 and resolve it most of the time. Which is a reason I didn't like the adventure version originally. It's because your best card you couldn't resolve. We're down to 2 Tragedy. If you remember my Brave version of the deck, I was on 3 to compensate for the extra Aliber. But in this 2 was fine. I never needed the 3rd except for one scenario, just because I mismanaged my resources, but it didn't cost me game. It was very nice to have 2 Tragedy. For the one-ofs, we played the 1 Comedy, the 1 Ad Libitum, and 1 Dramaturge. All these uniquely came up and functioned very well. Obviously, Ad Libitum is normal, so I don't really need to explain him, but Comedy came up a lot, just due to the fact that people were playing Imperm and Valor and everything again, and Mourner. But it also was just nice to have the extra name. And then Dramaturge actually cracked, like, all weekend. At the beginning of the tournament, I sided it out a little bit, because I remember playing a lot of Prank Kids earlier in the tournament and Adventure Synchros decks. But this card just puts in so much pressure. It's kind of crazy. Like, even if you don't get to resolve its Imperm effect, you can just, like, fuse it and then it comes back, and then you can fuse it again on your turn to make double Masquerade very easily. The card is very good. I don't think you need to play it, being said, and that you definitely don't need to play it in the Brave version, but again, the appeal to playing pure is you have a lot more flex spots for stuff like this. For the branded spells, 3 fusion, 3 opening, and 2 in red. Nothing really needs to be said here. Again, from my other profile, I ended up cutting this because you have a lot more grind utility in this. I feel like the 3rd was mainly just a crutch at the time in the last profile as well, just to help with learning the deck. But when I learned how to manage resources better and just play better with the deck, 2 branded in red felt right. So yeah, the 3rd one, again, kind of like Tragedy, came up maybe 1 time, but it didn't cost me game. It's just like if I had it, it would have been much easier. Played the branded Lost engine. Insane engine all day. I drew branded Lost all the time, which is very nice. And I drew a lot of hands where I drew Aliber, opening, and fusion, so I could actually use Aliber to search Lost. It was pretty much a wrap from there. I drew Mercurier quite a lot as well, which was nice. And then Albion was alright. He didn't really do much for me. But the fact that I did get to cycle through the deck for free was nice. You get to dump like openings out of the deck to help protect your fusions, which is nice. The light monster I played was Fairy Tale Snow. Uh, I really wanted to meme and play Dragoon this weekend, but like Dragoon never comes up, and this is like an insane card that you could just dump off Albion in the mid game, and like you can help secure the win very easily. She did end up getting DD Crowed quite a bit, but it's fine that they're DD Crowing her and not Tragedy for the Brandon and Red play. So I did play the Ed Jump package, which is something new for my last profile. So we got the chains, the patchworks, and the 2 polys. So the reason we played this engine is because it is broken, plain and simple. I like this ratio the most because you don't want to see these as often. You want to start with patchwork because you'll go patchwork in the chain gets the patchwork, and then you'll do that one more time, and then this is just free discard fodder for Luvelion. Whereas like you never want to see multiples of chain, and you really don't want to see multiples of poly. But drawing multiple patchwork isn't too bad because that means you'll just have all 3 out of the deck by the end of the turn. One of my big misplays that cost me a game in the mirror was I used Foolish Burial to dump this because I hadn't realized that it has to be sent from hand or field to the grave to activate its effect to add patchwork. That's just a complete misstep on my part. I shouldn't have done that, obviously. If I would have dumped Ad Libitum or Snow, the game would have been over. But I just fumbled the game and I lost because of it, so that's okay. For hand traps, we played only 5. The reason we only played 5 is because I didn't want to play them initially. I wanted to play just more board breakers. But the more I started playing board breakers or like protections like Crossout Designator, the more I started missing these just because in general I wanted some form of like protection on my opponent's turn to help play through the board on mine. So Ash was for that. It can also just, Ash Fusion Destiny, which is very important. And they came up quite a bit. Obviously, Ashing Brandon Fusion as well. Now, this card is insane. Every time I drew Moonlit, it was the deciding factor of the match. I stopped Scythe like 3 times off of this card. I drew it as my 6th card for turn once, and my opponent DPE Scythed me. And I did this and hit that, and then the 2200 damage burn was what ended up winning the game. So this is insane. I wish I played 3 and just played 42 cards. Honestly, I wish I just played 44 and just played like 3 more hand traps. Main deck counts at 41, by the way. Because I wish I just had a little bit more protection, like Imperm and her. But yeah, I don't know. The hand trap ratio never hurt. I never drew like too many hand traps. I only ever drew 2, obviously like 1-on-1. So like I got to play sometimes and well, not sometimes, but I got to play them and just like still have a handful of gas. So it's like I didn't have to sacrifice playing sometimes with hand traps. With my original build where I was playing like 10, maybe it was even 11. But I still got to play all the time with this. And I drew them just pretty much every once in a while, which is what I wanted. Treble Tactics. This card was insane. Just like Moonlit, every time I drew it, I pretty much won. I don't know why I wasn't playing this in my original list, but this card is absolutely crazy. This was also a spot for Pot of Prosperity, but I ended up liking this significantly more in testing online, and I'm glad I stuck to it with paper because this was crazy. The fact that all 3 effects are super relevant in this deck is insane. Like, drawing 2 is never a bad thing in this deck because you need 2 cards to play because you're a fusion deck. And there are so many times where I used it after Aliber got negated and I drew like Brandon and Red or Brandon Fusion. And it's just like over from there. Or you can take your opponent's DPE after they use the effect or anything like that. And then you just get to fuse it away. Or just even looking at their hand, because like you could eat a hand trap and still be fine and you just take their hand. Like all 3 functions of this card came up over the weekend. And it was insane every time. I'm glad I played 3 talents. 2 Super Poly. This card sucked all weekend. I'll be honest. This card absolutely was awful. I didn't play any of the teched out Super Poly targets. Like I didn't play Weather Washer. I didn't play the Guilty Gearfried Warrior. Because I didn't really think Sad was going to be as popular as it was. But I played 3 of them. So I probably should have played Guilty Gear, but I didn't. And that's fine. Super Poly came up every once in a while, but for the most part it sucked. So this is probably going to get cut or just moved to the side. The most I did with this was Super Poly my own board, the push for game. Yeah, so I definitely do not think Super Poly is all that. And then the two other protection cards, we got Foolish and Called By. Yeah, you kind of gotta play them. I guess you don't really have to play this, but I was playing Snow and Tragedy in the deck, obviously. And then, like, if your plays get stopped, you can dump the cards you need for Brandon and Red. So, like, it kind of just made sense to play it. Just don't send Edge of Chain. Like, that was some goober level stuff. So for the extra, 2 Mirror Jades still, 2 Lubellion still, and then 3 Albion still. This is your, like, core. In Pure, you have a lot more room to get away with stuff like this. 3 Albion is very good. I made it quite a bit with Snow, and Lubellion's I got stopped, so it worked out nicely. I'm glad I played it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't play Dragoon or any other, like, crazy targets, but it was still good to have the 3, just because it also helps with the grind with Mirror Jade. But you definitely have to play 2 Mirror Jade and 2 Lubellion. People who don't are crazy. And then the other Albaz fusions, we got 1 Sprint, 1 Brigand, or Brigand? Yeah, Brigand. Okay. So reasonings here, this searches Mercurier. If you already got Brandon in red, you can dump this, search Mercurier if you didn't get the search otherwise. It's just another, like, Albaz summoner. Like, this could be Titaniclad if you're not playing Mercurier, which is fine, because Titaniclad is a better monster. But I wanted the access to it, and then Sprint is here for kind of the same idea. It's just another Albaz summoner. But Contact C was initially very popular in the beginning of the format. I'm not playing Anaconda, spoiler. So I'm not playing any way to get the C off the field. So, like, in the middle of Lubellion, if I used Brain Fusion, this is how I out it, just by making this. And this card actually isn't awful. Like, its effect is actually pretty decent. A lot of people don't read it, so you get to, like, pop stuff for free all the time. I never got Contact C, but I still ended up making both of these. Everything in my extra deck I made at least once, I will say. And they all came up for unique reasons. The 2 Chimeras still gotta play 2. There was one game I got to resolve this 4 times because I kept putting it back off Lubellion in the grind, and it was kind of crazy. 2 Masquerades. My original profile, I played 2 because I didn't have a Link Spider. But since I didn't need to play the Brave stuff, I kept 2, and I gotta say, the second came up all the time. And the Quertus, this came up a lot. There are a lot of hands where I just have to make 2 of these and pass on my opponent. And since Droplet as a whole was less popular this format, it was very powerful. I only got Dropleted twice, I want to say. And my opponent just burned to death off this a lot, especially because I played a lot of prank and adventure stuff. And then Quertus, in testing I made this all the time, but in the tournament I only made it like a handful of times, like maybe 4 or 5 times. But it did win every single game that it came out. So this card's insane. I'm glad I played it as well. I didn't play the big one, the Skeleon. I didn't feel like it was necessary. I felt like I would only want it if I ever drew Super Poly. And I didn't want to play a card in my extra deck that was only good with Super Poly, which is why I didn't play any of their targets. I wanted my extra deck to be completely self-coherent and flowing naturally. And then the Predaplant. This actually was insane too. Like, I made this all the time. There's a lot of times where I made it on, like, a Baron. Like, I would steal their DPE and, like, an Aliber effect because they let it go through, so they could Baron negate the thing, Brain Fusion. And I would just, like, make this, and, like, even if, like, you just bait the Baron with this and they destroy this, who cares? Like, you put it back and make it again, or you can just, like, wait, obviously, like a good player would, and just snipe the Baron. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm really good. I played it. There were some points where I wanted 2, because I was getting lazy at the end, like closer to the end, like resource managing horribly. Side deck, we got 3 Token Collector. I'm very glad I played this because I played against a lot of adventure decks. This was great all weekend. I'm really glad I played 3 Collector. We played Banshee World. Never sided it. Didn't play it against any Flu or Tri Brigade or the Sword Soul guy I played, I won game 1 and then won game 2, so I didn't have to worry about it. So yeah, I never really needed to side this at all during the weekend, but in theory it is actually crazy, so that's why I played it. 3 Twin, this is the OTK against Flu. It's nice to have. It's very good into Eldritch. I had the sickest outplay ever with this card at the tournament. My opponent set 4 pass with Eldritch, and I went to my turn, and I said enter battle phase, and he agreed to enter battle, and then at the start of battle phase started activating his traps to get them on field so he can not banish Scarlet Sanguine face down or Golden Lord. And he ended on 2 back row, and I was like, proceed to end of still in battle, end of battle, activate Twin Twister, and his mind was blown. Like he got outplayed very hard. He was a really cool guy, and if you're watching this video, it was a very fun game. And yeah, this was crazy. 3 evenly. For the back row decks and the adventure decks, this came in a lot too. I noticed a really bad side pattern I would have. And so I would side this and Collector against most of the Brave decks at the start of the tournament, not thinking of how they would conflict. Since I'm not playing Anaconda to link off the Token Collector and then like bait and negate or anything like that. So this was good. Every time I resolved evenly, I won. As you should. But there were a lot of times where I had this and Token Collector, and I was like, man, how did I do this to myself? How did we get here? 3 Solemn Judgment. This card was kind of crazy too. Against my Eldritch opponent, I drew all 3. I only got to resolve 1, but I had all 3. And then in the mirror and against Prank Kids, I got to Judgment Artemis here. And then their deck became like fair, and I was able to out them that way. So yeah, Judgment was very good. I was never afraid of time for things like Mirror Match or Prank Kids, I should say, as well. Because I have my own ways of life point manipulation with Masquerade. So I was not really worried. And finally, the God card Reboot. Only sided it once, and your boy drew it once. So that was amazing. Yeah, that was the deck profile. As I said, I got 26th. The deck was very fun to play. It performed very well. My losses were not to the deck and were to me, being a goon. I highly recommend playing pure Despia if you're on the adventure stuff and you just want to, try a different build and, get away from the norm of the adventure package in this deck, because I don't think it's necessary. I think it's very fun this way. It seems like it plays better through interruptions being built like this. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. It was a blast at Columbus. Everybody, I did actually meet a fan, which is pretty cool. He remembered my older channel and recognized me, so it was cool to meet you. Had a great time with friends and stuff, and I can't wait for YCS Hartford, and I can't wait for other regionals, including the next Columbus event in June 4th, and I'll be going to that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Do you think that this is playable without Adventure? Do you think that this deck is an Adventure-only deck? I think it's better as pure, but we'll leave it like that. Thanks for watching. Peace, YouTube.